Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Off the Bench podcast. My name is Robert Sellers, and today we're discussing Week 11 of college football. It was a great Saturday. I've got a lot of instant reactions to it. A lot of awesome stuff happened, as always. A lot of shenanigans occurred, and a lot of awesome things happened that are going to set up more awesome things the last 3 weeks of the regular season. The playoff picture, of course, is starting to shape up, but there's a lot of wildness that still is left to transpire, and I cannot wait to watch it unfold. Indiana got just an unreal win on the road at Penn State. We'll definitely be talking about that first. That's the biggest story, in my opinion, this Saturday in college football is what Indiana did in Happy Valley. Texas Tech just absolutely gutted and dismantled BYU. That was ugly in Lubbock. Tech, to me, definitely the clear best team in the Big 12. I said that going into this week. I definitely maintain that opinion is true. Alabama got a big rivalry win against LSU. Oregon just barely squeaked out and survived against the Iowa Hawkeyes. Very close game, but they found a way to win. Texas A&M stays undefeated, stays unbeaten, gets another big road win in the Southeastern Conference. Vandy survives barely. And yes, Georgia did get a big program-defining, huge, ginormous win on the road at an amazing SEC team with a great program and a very loud fan base. They beat Mississippi State. Good for Georgia. Well, I'll clap it up for Georgia. They get another win in the SEC. Good for the Dogs. I like the Dogs. I have to say it this way. I'm obligated to. And the ACC is just fully descended into chaos. It is awesome. Right now, the ACC is my favorite conference in college football just because I'll get to it. I'll get to why I think it's so awesome. But nobody knows what's going on. Not even the ACC knows what the ACC is doing right now. It's awesome. Just wait until the end. I'll talk about the ACC. And the American Conference also, that group of 5 spot that is left to be taken by somebody, that is wide open after Memphis losing to Tulane on Friday night. Just an awesome week of college football once again. I thought it was going to be a little lackluster this week because there wasn't really a lot of huge, defining, amazing games going into this week, but it provided just so much entertainment and it was a lot of fun. So I'm going to talk about it. Of course, going into these instant reaction videos, the game that I talk about first, in my opinion, is the biggest story of the week. And this week, to me, no doubt, the biggest story, the craziest thing that happened was Indiana going on the road to Happy Valley and taking down the Penn State Nittany Lions. There's something special about this team in Indiana. There is something special brewing in Bloomington. And listen, I'm not going to just go off on a limb and say that this is the best team ever, and this team is going to easily win the national championship. And watch out Ohio State, watch out Alabama, watch out Texas A&M. But this team is it's so much fun. I think they're so cool. I think they're so fun to watch. I love everything about Curt Cignetti. I mean, going into this year, of course, he said a lot of arrogant things into the press. I'll just leave it at that. But what Curt Cignetti has done at Indiana, to me, is the greatest coaching job that anyone has ever done in the first 2 years of being at a program in the history of college football. And I know I can't speak on the history of college football. I'm only 19 years old, so I don't really understand the whole scope of things. But at least in my lifetime, at least since 2005, there has not been a single head coach that has gone to a program and in the first 2 years of being there has achieved as much as Indiana has done in their first 2 years of being in a program. So I love that side of it. But let's get into this game and what happened in this game. First of all, if you just open up Fox Sports or you open up ESPN, and you just look at the game stats of this football game, they were so eerily similar. It's weird. I'll just read some of them out to you. Indiana had 62 total plays. Penn State had 64. Indiana had 326 total yards. Penn State had 336. They had about the same yards per play. They had the same amount of passing yards. It was a 1 yard difference, actually. Indiana had 218. Penn State had 219. Running the football, Indiana had 108 yards. Penn State had 117. They averaged the same amount of yards per rush. Indiana got 2 sacks. Penn State got 3 sacks. They had very similar tackle for loss numbers. It sort of seemed like neither team pulled away and definitively won this game. If you looked at it from this standpoint, if you just looked at the game stats. Well, I didn't just look at the game stats. I actually was a college football fan and sat down and watched the game, which some people don't do, and then they have their opinion on it. But watch the game. If you want to have your opinion, watch the game. So going into this game, Indiana has all the momentum in the world. They're 9-0. They're number 2 in the country. Everyone is picking them to just be their sweetheart, darling team of the year. Everyone loves Indiana. They're white hot. On the other side, Penn State has a 5-game losing streak. They fired their head coach. Their quarterback is injured. They have nothing to play for. They are just 100% cooked. And Indiana, on the other side, is cooking. And it's complete different. How do I say that? The environments at these two different places are just stark contrasts going into this game. And at the beginning of the game, honestly, of course, Indiana was up 17-7 at halftime. They were up 20-7 late in the third quarter. To me, even though the score might say this, Indiana wasn't really dominating. They weren't really going out there and winning this football game. They were just sort of taking advantage of Penn State's mistakes. They got a couple of turnovers that were sort of in Indiana territory that Indiana was able to turn into points. In fact, 10 of their first 20 points came off of turnovers. So they were up 20-7, but to me, it more felt like it should have been 10-7. It's just Penn State made some mistakes. Katron Allen had a fumble. Grunkmeyer had an interception. I think that's how you say his name. Ethan Grunkenmeyer, something like that. Goofy name, but he was fun to watch today, so I shouldn't talk too much trash about him. And then Penn State went and scored a touchdown. And the fourth quarter was just awesome. I mean, if Penn State's down 20-7 at this point, they scored a touchdown. King Mack made an awesome interception on the sideline, and then they scored another touchdown. And all of a sudden, Penn State had the lead. This team that was dead in the water, 5 losses in a row going into this game, had a lead at home against the undefeated number 2 ranked Indiana Hoosiers. Nick Singleton came alive. Zane Durant came alive. It sort of felt like everything that Penn State thought was going to work so brilliantly for them in the preseason that had just completely gone to waste in the regular season woke up in this game. It was awesome to watch from a Penn State fan standpoint. I am not a Penn State fan, but from Penn State fans' standpoint, they're probably looking at this team going, yes, this is what I thought we were going to have. This is what I was told we were going to have. And then all of the good players that I heard about for 6 months in the offseason just completely fell asleep, and now they've chosen to wake up. It was fun to watch, I'll say that. And then all of a sudden, people are saying, oh, Penn State is going to win this football game. They're up 24-20. Indiana looks dead in the water. They had the ball. They went 3 and out. They had to punt. Penn State somehow punted back. Indiana made some big plays. I get it. They did on defense. That got them the ball back. And then this last drive was just absolute cinema. It was cinematic. Penn State got a sack on the first play of the drive. Fernando Mendoza on 2nd and 17. All of the wideout glaring in his face. Just, we're fine. 2nd and 17. Cover 3 coverage. Seam shot right down the middle. Moving the chains. We're moving the chains. And he had 2 or 3 of those throws against that Penn State zone coverage that were just absolute missiles. Just absolute. Ooh, it was awesome. Fernando Mendoza against zone coverage is a just mastermind. He picks you apart. And then we got to the red zone, and Penn State just went, we're just tired of zone coverage. We're tired of giving y'all a chance. We're just going to blitz 8 players every single play and put everyone in man coverage. And they couldn't do anything. Fernando Mendoza, literally 4 plays in a row. Penn State ran an all-out blitz. They just walked up, everybody to the line of scrimmage, and blitzed. And 3 plays in a row, Fernando Mendoza, didn't know what he was doing. They didn't adjust. They didn't bring in tight ends to pass. I don't know. I thought it was stupid. I thought Kurt Signetti should have done such a much better job at the end of that game. But what it came down to was a 3rd down where Penn State blitzed again, and Fernando Mendoza, with pressure in his face again, jumps in the air with 2 Nittany Lions right there, throws it up, a fade route pretty much, to Omar Cooper, by the way, their number 1 receiver, Elijah Sarai, injured for this game. This is Omar Cooper, their other outside receiver, who's a great player, but he goes up, high points the football beautifully, a beautifully, perfectly thrown football by Fernando Mendoza, where only his guy could get it. He high points it, and not only does he get his right foot down, but he hovers his left foot above the ground, somehow not making contact with the white line, and gives Indiana the lead. And listen, this might be an over-exaggeration. I get it. You might be able to pull up an instance from whatever part of any college football season you can conceive of. But for me, from my memory, that catch by Omar Cooper, given the circumstance of the game, right, with the game on the line to win it on the road, the circumstance of Indiana's season, they're undefeated, to remain undefeated, and the circumstance, or the fact that it was just utterly impossible how he caught that ball and kept his foot in bounds. To me, that was the single greatest regular season catch that I have seen in all my days of watching college football. It was unreal. If you haven't seen it, you have to look it up. You have to just look up Omar Cooper touchdown catch. And it's I have no idea how it's possible. In the world that we live in, with gravity and with the physics of this world, I don't understand how he was able to keep his right foot up off the ground and get his left foot in. I don't get it. And I don't understand how Fernando Mendoza on a jump pass perfectly throws a football to where only he's got. Unreal. Unreal how Indiana won this football game. And then Penn State got the ball back, and Kruckmeyer had a wide open route. A cover 2 hole shot that was wide open to get his team into field goal range. And instead of just leading his receiver down towards him to where the open space was, he tries to throw a touchdown pass. And oh my gosh, Penn State, you had it. Kruckmeyer, you had the chance to push it to overtime. And he made a bad throw. And they had to throw a Hail Mary. And they knocked it down. And it was game over. And my goodness, just career defining for Indiana. And by the way, Indiana has never won at Penn State ever until today. This is just so epic. This story is awesome. This is one of the greatest games of the year. Of course, I think Georgia-Tennessee was a better game. That game was awesome. But this is a close second. This game was unreal. A couple more shout-outs that I have to give. Charlie Becker is an absolute American legend. I mean, keep in mind, I said this already. Indiana was without their starting X receiver. They were without Elijah Surratt. And Omar Cooper, of course he stepped up. Made a huge, huge catch at the end of the game. I already described how amazing I thought that was. But he wasn't even the main man. Charlie Becker, number 80, 6'4", true sophomore, came into this game with 7 catches all season long. That's it. He had 7 catches all season long. Came into this game and had 7 more catches for like 118 yards. And these weren't just catches where he was wide open in zone coverage. It's not like he was catching screen passes and turning them to 20 yards. Charlie Becker was making big-time third-down catches, one-on-one in man coverage, where he was going up and high-pointing footballs and winning. It was elite. I loved watching it so much. This random 6'4" white dude, number 80, was just balling out there. And he wasn't even a number 4 receiver. He was like the number 5 receiver. And he came in and just put up 7 catches for 118 yards. It was awesome. This game was so awesome. I loved watching it so much. And guess what? This is what Indiana has the rest of their way. They play Wisconsin at home. Wisconsin did just beat Washington. That was a big win for the Badgers. But they have Wisconsin at home. Ain't no way in hell that Indiana loses to Wisconsin. Then they have a bye week. That clip is probably going to come back to bite me. Whatever. Then they play at Purdue. So Indiana's going 12-0. I don't think they're losing to Wisconsin or Purdue. They're going 12-0. Just unreal that it's like Curt Cignetti. If you told us before, like 3 years ago, that Curt Cignetti would go undefeated in the Big Ten in 2025 with wins at Oregon and at Penn State, are you kidding me? It is legendary what he's been able to do at Indiana. Huge stuff for the Hoosiers. As far as Penn State, you have nothing to be sad about. Oh, you have something to be sad about. You have nothing not to be proud about in this game. Fantastic effort from the Nittany Lions. This team, of course, this is why I hate when coaches get fired in the middle of the season, because I think it's so unfair to players and assistant coaches, because assistant coaches, all that they're worrying about is where they're going to be next year, because they know they're not going to be at Penn State. And then for the players, it's sort of the same thing. They don't get the attention they deserve, and the team sort of just kind of falls apart. But this Penn State team did the opposite of fall apart. They came together, and they gave their best effort of the year and almost took down Indiana. But again, awesome win for Indiana. This is the Heisman moment, in my opinion, for Fernando Mendoza. I think he's going to go on to win the Heisman Trophy. I think Indiana is my, screw it, they're my pick to win the national championship. They were a couple weeks ago. This started for me not right after the Oregon win, but like a couple weeks after, where I said to myself, Indiana to me is the most complete team in the country. I do believe the Indiana Hoosiers are going to win the national championship. Whether that comes after beating Ohio State or losing to Ohio State in the Big Ten championship, for me, I could care less. I think that they're just incredibly complete, and I could see worlds where they don't win the national championship. It's not an overwhelming pick for me, but crazy that in Kirk Cignetti's second year with the program, I am picking Fernando Mendoza to win the Heisman Trophy and Indiana to win the national championship. But that's the world we're living in. Indiana, ladies and gentlemen, literally the program that has lost the most games in the history of college football, is dominating the 12-team playoff era so far. So crazy for Indiana. Amazing win. We're gonna move on though. We're gonna push on towards a different game reluctantly because I just want to talk about this game. It was so awesome. But we're gonna move on. We're gonna talk about, in my opinion, the second biggest story from this weekend, and that was the Texas Tech Red Raiders just splattering the BYU Cougars 29-7 in Lubbock, Texas. Sorry, I had to take a quick swig of water there. This was a top 10 matchup between two top 10 teams, and between the two top teams in the Big 12. And I started out my preview episode of this game by talking about how Texas Tech is the most well-rounded team in college football. And the question that I had a lot of questions about this game, but the main question that I had was Texas Tech plays a lot of 3-4 and a lot of 4-3, and they play almost no nickel and no dime, which basically means they never have 5 or more defensive backs on the field. They play with a lot of linebackers and a lot of defensive linemen. What does that mean? It means that they play very physical, and they stop the run really, really well, and they play a lot of zone coverage in the back, a lot of cover 3, a lot of cover 2, which makes it really hard to get beat on deep plays. So my question was, can BYU, who's been running the ball for over 200 yards per game, compete with Texas Tech's loading the box strategy? And Texas Tech dominated that. If we look at team stats, BYU had 67 total yards rushing. That was it on 27 attempts. A team that is averaging over 200 rushing yards per game. Texas Tech held them to just 67 yards rushing. LJ Martin bottled for most of this game. They only got 1 sack, which I was really surprised about. I mean, David Bailey and whoever the heck number 9's name is, I can never remember number 9's name, but those guys did not get a sack. Neither of them even got to the quarterback. And Bear Bachmeier couldn't run the ball at all. They had no quarterback run game, no running back run game. I mean, Texas Tech just shot down the engine of this BYU offense. And to me, that's the main reason that they just got stuck. And in this Texas Tech game, they won 29-7. You look at this game and say, oh, that's a blowout. They blew them out. It should have been more. It should have been a heck of a lot more. The reason that it wasn't a heck of a lot more was because Texas Tech could not score in the red zone. They kicked like 6 field goals in this game. If they had just scored in the red zone, this would have been so much worse. So, yes, Texas Tech did dominate this football game. 8 BYU's run game. I already talked about that. Offensively, Texas Tech was also really, really effective. I still don't think Baron Morton is an elite quarterback. I'm still on that train. I don't look at this Texas Tech offense and immediately just go, oh my gosh, Baron Morton is so good. That is not my reaction with this offense. Morton was 17 of 32. That's 53% completion percentage. That's not very good. He had 219 yards, 1 touchdown. To me, the best part about this game from Baron Morton, and I think Texas Tech fans would agree, 0 interceptions. Thumbs up, Baron Morton, for those 0 interceptions. To me, the reason this Texas Tech team offense is so effective is because they have so many guys that can make so many plays in open space. They just have athletes. Like Dickey, the running back, 121 yards, a touchdown. He is so impossible to tackle in the open field. He's dynamic. And Williams, their backup running back too, dynamic as well. They had rushes of 33 and 43 yards between the two of them. Just great athletes. Of course, their tight end, Carter, that dude is such a problem. He is a freak. He is so athletic. I just think that Texas Tech did such a great job surrounding this quarterback, Baron Morton, with awesome talent to work with. And to me, it's shown through on the offensive end for the Red Raiders. And then I don't think they allowed 4 sacks. That was more than I thought that they did. I guess they did. So they pressured Baron Morton a good amount. And BYU really made a lot of bad mistakes in this game. I'm not going to lie. They muffed the punt. They had another fumble at the end of the game. They had an interception. Bachmeier did throw a pick. I think the miscues and the lack of the running game really just doomed this offense. I still love Bear Bachmeier. He's the freshman starting quarterback from BYU. I still think he's super talented. I think he's a heck of an athlete, and he can just rip some really, really good throws. But when you turn the ball over at an unnecessary amount and you can't run the ball, it's really hard to function as an offense. And Texas Tech did a great job doing those things and taking advantage of them. So shout out Texas Tech big time. Tech finishes the year with UCF and then a bye week and then at West Virginia. So they don't get the brunt of the tough Big 12 teams at the end of the year. That's very light. UCF and West Virginia are teams that have not had very good years. Of course, you never know in college football. They could drop one of these games, but most likely, in my opinion, we're looking at an 11-1 Texas Tech in conference championship week. And are you really going to punish an 11-loss team for losing their conference championship game if Texas Tech theoretically loses to whomever they play in the conference championship game? To me, no. So to me, Texas Tech is a clear college football playoff team, barring a unreal upset from either UCF or West Virginia. BYU, on the other hand, they were undefeated going into this week. They pick up their first loss, and now they have to play TCU at Cincinnati and UCF. So those two games, TCU and at Cincinnati, very, very difficult for BYU. We'll see if they can pull them out. I love Bear Bachmeier. I love BYU's coach. I can never remember his name. But one of the best things I loved about BYU's coach, after they got a stop at the very end of the first half, they were down 16-0. His players come running off the field after getting a stop in the red zone, and he is just amped. He's so energetic. He's giving all his players high fives. He's like, let's go. We finished the half strong. Let's go. Let's get in the locker room. Let's adjust. Let's go out there and let's hit him in the mouth. Basically, I don't think he gives up. I think he's a great program builder. I think he's a great motivator. Unfortunately, they did not have the halftime adjustments, and Texas Tech hit them in the mouth. But I do like this BYU team. I think they have a chance to run the table, but again, they just got completely out-talented by Texas Tech, and I think that's really a problem that most teams are going to have in this conference. We've seen how good Utah's been the last few weeks. Let's not forget that Texas Tech went on the road to Utah and smothered the Utes. So Texas Tech, to me, really is just obviously, easily, the most well-rounded, most talented team in this conference. And they should not just make the playoffs, but who knows, they could make some noise. I don't think they're going to win the national championship, but they could make some noise in the playoffs, for sure. So, great win for Joey McGuire and the Texas Tech Red Raiders. So with that, we're going to move a little bit further north in the country, where the Oregon Ducks, the top 10 Oregon Ducks, went on the road to number 20 Iowa, and the Hawkeyes gave Oregon a spook, and the Ducks just barely found a way to win in this game, 18-16 on like a last-second field goal. This was a really close game. It was a really good game. It was a game very similar to what we thought it was going to be. Will and I both agreed. There was rain in the forecast. We both picked this game to be very sloppy, very wet, and a very, very close game. And I picked Oregon's defensive line to travel well on the road and win this game. That's kind of what happened. I mean, it was very sloppy. Neither team could throw the ball very well. I mean, Iowa, of course, couldn't throw the ball very well. They only had 138 yards passing, which is about on par for them. But they outpassed Oregon. Dante Moore was 13 for 21 with 112 passing yards. So, very, very poor performance from Oregon through the air. But, to me, the main question coming into this game for the Ducks was, can your offensive line play well? This was a make or break game, to me, for the Oregon offensive line. Because going into this year, I thought they were going to be great. They got a couple great transfers. They were going to be talented. And then after the Penn State game, where the Oregon offensive line played really, really well, I was like, okay, this Oregon offensive line is going to be awesome. They're going to dominate the trenches, and they're going to cruise through the Big Ten. And then we figured out that Penn State's defensive line just sort of hadn't woken up until the Indiana game. And Oregon got smacked by Indiana also. So is this Oregon offensive line really for real? That was my question going into this week against an Iowa team that has a good front seven that blitzes a lot. Well, Oregon ran the ball for 261 yards in this game. They averaged 7.2 yards per carry, and Dante Moore was sacked 0 times. So yes, the Oregon offensive line showed up, they showed out, they dominated, and to me, they were the reason why Oregon had somewhat control over this football game. So big shout out to Oregon's offensive line. Dante Moore did struggle, of course. He struggled without his best receiver, Decorian Moore. He was injured this game. I'm not sure how long that injury is supposed to last, but that is definitely something I need to check out. And Dante Moore struggled, I guess, just with a wet football. It was raining all night, so I guess it makes sense. But definitely not a Heisman-level performance from Dante Moore, that's for sure. He also threw an interception, that's worth noting. But I credit Iowa, to be honest, game stats-wise, like Oregon outplayed Iowa in terms of yards. They had way more total yards. They had 373 total yards to Iowa's 239. They had way more yards per play, way more rushing yards. So Oregon statistically controlled this game. They should have won it by a lot more than they did, but I credit Iowa, Kirk Ferentz's clock control and Iowa's ability to manipulate the clock and sort of manipulate this game in their favor to make it so close. Oregon was just able to make the big plays towards the end of the game to win this one. And, I mean, Oregon finishes the year. They've got some tough games left. They play Minnesota on Friday night. That shouldn't be too tough of a game. But then they have to play USC the week after. And, I mean, I guess Oregon, they had a bye week before this. So they're playing 5 straight games to end the season. And they got Minnesota, I already said, USC at home. And then they have to go at Washington, a rivalry game against the Huskies. I know the Huskies just lost tonight to the Badgers. They're still a talented team. It's still on the road. It's still a rivalry game, so that's not going to be easy at all. And the question to me right now for Oregon, just playoff-wise, is can a 2-loss Oregon team get into the playoffs? To me, the answer is I don't know. Which to me is why Oregon just needs to win out. Because if you win out and you go 11-1 and you don't make the Big Ten championship, it doesn't matter. Like, you're going to make the playoffs. But if you chance it, if you lose to USC, if you lose to Washington, then yes, there is a chance that a 2-loss Oregon team doesn't make the playoffs. I'm not saying that I don't think they would. I think that most likely they probably would. But that's not what Oregon doesn't want to bet on. Most likely we'll probably make it if we have 2 losses. Oregon wants to bet on we're 11-1, we're in the playoffs. So to me, Oregon has to win out just to be certain. And it's not going to be easy to win out against USC. I think USC is a great team. I thought they were great all season long, so that's not going to be easy for them. But we'll see. Good win for Oregon. This is not an easy place to play against a good Iowa team, and they figured out a way to win this game at the end. So good job by Dan Lanning and the staff for finding a way to win. I'm going to take a quick sig of water before we move on to the SEC. Speaking of the SEC, the last couple weeks, the SEC has sort of been at the forefront of the college football conversation, at least my college football conversation. But this week, we just started off with Big Ten, Big 12, Big Ten. Haven't even mentioned the SEC. And we're going to start in the Superior Columbia, Missouri, where the Missouri Tigers put up 17 points against Texas A&M and fell 21 points short. The Aggies won 38-17 on the road in Missouri to remain undefeated, not only in the Southeastern Conference, but in their 2025 season campaign. Missouri just dropped their 3rd SEC game, I believe. So they're probably eliminated. I would be shocked if Missouri somehow finds a way to make the playoffs. They were without Bo Prabula, their starting quarterback, and they fell to the Aggies. To me, the main story with this game, the Texas offensive line just ate up Missouri. And it was a matchup that I was really, really interested in seeing because I think the best part about Missouri are their 2 edge rushers, Zion Young and Damon Wilson. They're super smart. They watch a lot of film. They know the game really well. they're twitchy, they can get to the quarterback, and Zion can bull rush you too. So I was really interested to see how this elite Texas A&M offensive line matched up with Missouri's really fun to watch defensive line. And A&M won that battle, and they won it resoundingly. Marcel Reed was sacked once in this game, and it wasn't by Young or Wilson. It was by somebody else. I have the stats right now so I can figure it out. It was by Darius Smith. Oh, Darius Smith. Okay, yeah, he's the defensive end. So he's pretty good, but A&M's offensive line was able to pretty much neutralize Missouri's speed rushing threats. And not to mention, A&M ran the ball for 207 yards. No, that was Missouri. A&M ran the ball for more than that. 243 yards rushing for Texas A&M. Reuben Owens was great in this game. He averaged 7.8 yards per carry and had a 57-yard touchdown run. Dalton Brooks had a big 48-yard run. I didn't honestly watch all this game. I didn't see that play, but it shows up on the stat sheet. Marcel Reed had a 28-yard run. E.J. Smith came in and played really, really well. Of course, Mario Craver and Casey Concepcion were great. This team ran the ball well, and it's so good for Texas A&M to run the ball well because it takes so much pressure off of Marcel Reed. I still don't believe Marcel Reed is an elite passer, and I don't believe that this receiving core possesses elite downfield threat. So, to me, the way you neutralize this Texas A&M team is you stop the run and you tackle these receivers out in space. But no one's been able to do that because A&M's run game is dominant and their receivers cannot be tackled out in space. And that was once again the same in this game. Marcel Reed was only 20 for 29 with 221 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 0 interceptions. To me, this is a great game for Marcel Reed. I think this is not a great game for prime Joe Burrow, but this is a great game for Marcel Reed. He didn't turn it over. 20 for 29 is a much better completion percentage than he's had in some of his other games, which means he's being efficient. He's making the right reads. He's doing what the offense is supposed to do. And he had 221 yards. So I respect what Marcel Reed put out there. I'm not hating on him as an athlete. I think he's a heck of an athlete. I don't think he's the greatest downfield passer. And to me, that still remains to be true. To me, for Marcel Reed. But I don't mean to hit on Texas A&M too much. Their defense also played really, really well, especially in the secondary. Matt Zellers, I really like Matt Zellers. I liked his performance against Vanderbilt. He went out there, played with no fear, was really fun outside the pocket, and I saw that, and I hated Bo Prabula. I think Bo Prabula was awful. And I saw this new fun guy come up out of the ranks to be the new quarterback, and he just completely was awful in this football game. 7 for 22. 77 yards, that's it. Rough day through the air for the Missouri Tigers. They really could not generate anything in terms of a passing game. But they ran the ball pretty dang well. Jamal Roberts and Ahmad Hardy both had over 100 yards rushing. And they averaged together about 7 yards per carry, or 7.5 yards per carry. So even though they weren't able to throw the ball, they were able to run the ball pretty well against Texas A&M. Of course, A&M had the lead the entire game, so I'm not going to gripe about that too much. That doesn't really mean a lot. The question that every single person is asking about Texas A&M is, wait, Texas A&M, do you really think they're for real? Do you really think they have a chance? Because guess what? No one's asking that about Ohio State. No one's asking that about Alabama. No one is saying, do you think Alabama could win the national championship? You think that's possible? No one's kicking back in their lawn chairs on a Saturday afternoon saying, that Ohio State team, man, they look good, but can they win a national championship? Can they do that? No one is saying that about those teams. But everybody's asking that question about Texas A&M. Has Texas A&M done anything that Ohio State or Alabama hasn't done? Or has Ohio State or Alabama done anything that Texas A&M hasn't done? Well, yes, the answer is Alabama has lost a game. Texas A&M has not done that. But my point is, Texas A&M is playing at a level that they're playing at the top of college football right now with the big kahunas. And yet, the question still remains to be, is Texas A&M really elite? Are they really one of the big boys? Can they really pull this off? And the answer to that, and the reason that is because they haven't yet. To me, the answer to this question is, I think this is the best Texas A&M team of the 21st century. I will say that. To me, that's pretty obvious. I mean, they're 9-0. And they play South Carolina, Samford, and at Texas. I think this A&M team is great. I do. I think their offensive line is the best in college football. I think their linebackers, Scooby Williams and Tari York, are dogs. I think their secondary is getting better every week. Their playmakers are unreal. They can run the ball so well. Marcel Reed is a great athlete. But no, right now, I would not pick Texas A&M to win a national championship. I would not do it. I think they're a great team for all the reasons I just listed. I think they can compete with anybody. But no, I don't trust Marcel Reed's arm talent quite enough to claim them as national champions. That's the only reason. I think A&M's going to beat South Carolina. I think they're going to beat Samford. And I think they're going to lose to Texas on the road. And I think Texas is going to lose to Georgia. So Georgia is going to get into the SEC championship over Texas A&M. I think we're going to get a A&M or a Georgia-Alabama SEC championship game. And frankly, you know what? Actually, I don't think that. Because I think Alabama's going to lose to Auburn. So I think we're going to get a Georgia-Texas A&M SEC championship game. And I think Georgia's going to win. So that's what I think is going to happen. I don't think Texas A&M is going to be able to hang with some of the top teams in the country. I think they're great. I think they're top 10 for sure. And resume-wise, I think they have one of, if not the best resumes in college football. But I just don't trust Marcel Reed yet. You can hate me as much as you want. I just don't trust Marcel Reed yet enough. I have not seen a single game from Marcel Reed where he's gone out and made consistent down-the-field throws to win a football game. And don't you dare say Notre Dame. Don't you dare say it. Because Marcel Reed was 17 of 37 in that game. And I think that's actually better than what he was. He had a terrible completion percentage. And all of his yards came from Mario Craver and Casey Concepcion either making incredible catches or making catches in the flats and Notre Dame just forgetting how to tackle. So, I don't know. He's a good quarterback. I think he's a great quarterback. He's a great athlete. He's a great football player. I just don't trust his downfield throwing enough for me to pick him to win the national championship. That's my reasoning. You can disagree with me all you want, and that's fine. You have the right to. I understand if you do. But nonetheless, a big win for Texas A&M, and they are 9-0. Texas A&M officially cannot go 8-4, so that whole joke is over. And Texas A&M, man, just heck of a season. We're all talking about the amazing job that Kurt Cignetti has done in his first 2 years at Indiana. Mike Elko has done an incredible job in his first 2 years at Texas A&M, and he deserves all the props in the world. Good for Mike Elko. I'm going to take one last swig of water here. And you might be wondering yourself if you're watching on YouTube, where's the Cabo Bob's Cup, Robert? I see it every single week. Well, I don't know where it is, to be completely honest with you. I know it's in the apartment somewhere because I don't take it anywhere else. But I just do this from time to time. I just lose something, and then like 2 weeks later, it is in the most obvious place ever. But right now, we're rocking with the Robert mug, and I really like the Robert mug, but it's no Cabo Bob's Cup. I will say that Cabo Bob's Cup is very sacred. But we're gonna move on to another SEC clash, another big time win for a contending SEC team as the Alabama Crimson Tide win their rivalry game against the LSU Tigers 20-9 at Bryant-Denny Stadium. A resounding, dominant performance from this Alabama defense. They played great. They played with ferocity. They were fantastic. They stuffed the LSU run game. I know. It's the LSU run game. The LSU run game has gotten stuffed by anybody. You could line up the Vestavia Hills high school football team, and they would stuff LSU's run game. But Alabama did stuff LSU's run game. The Crimson Tide had 4 non-sack tackles for loss. Basically, that means 4 times LSU ran the ball and Alabama tackled it behind the line of scrimmage. And LSU finished with 25 carries for 60 yards and 2.4 yards per carry. And if they didn't have that one big run from Barry, number 22, their run game literally would have been non-existent. So Alabama's front seven played great. I think their linebackers really stepped up. This was maybe the best all-around game that Alabama's played from their linebacker position. And I will say, the thing that Alabama's defense has missed the last couple years, the thing that I look at this Alabama defense and I say, they've had a great secondary, under Kalen DeBoer. It's been awesome. Even the year before that, I'm not gonna talk about the Saban era. In the Kalen DeBoer era, they've had a great secondary. They've had great linebacker play. They've had great big old run stuffers in the middle of the field, but they haven't had that dominant edge rusher that you can say, here's the guy that we're going to put on third down, and he's going to get to the quarterback, and he's going to wreck third and long. They haven't had that guy. To me, that guy has now become Yonsei Pierre. I think Yonsei Pierre is the X factor of this Alabama defense. I think Alabama has done so much better on third downs this year defensively because of number 42 blitzing off the edge. He's twitchy, he's fast, and he has got a great head on his shoulders. You can tell that dude watches film and he knows what he's doing. And he had 2 sacks today, he had a forced fumble, and big time game wrecker, not only this game, but throughout the rest of the college football season, Yonsei Pierre should be. I already talked about linebackers playing great. Dijon Lee, true freshman corner for Alabama. That dude is balling out. I believe he's 6'3", 6'4". LSU has been throwing fade routes to Trey'Dez Green on the goal line the last 3 weeks. That's their whole red zone offense is we're going to just run our 6'7" tight end to the corner of the end zone, and he's a freak athlete, and he's just going to win. And they tried that on Dijon Lee, and Dijon Lee knocked it away. He made a play. He's the first person I've seen make a play on Trey'Dez Green in the red zone. And he's just a true freshman. That dude is so skilled. He's been playing all the snaps pretty much for Damani Jackson. Damani's been disappointing this year. Dijon Lee has filled his shoes really well. So this Alabama defense played great. I will say the LSU offense is not very good, but Alabama's defense still played really good. So got to respect them there. Let's look at the Bama offense though. Let's just keep in mind who Alabama was playing. They were playing LSU. LSU, in my opinion, has an elite secondary. I think their secondary is really good. I really like DJ Pickett. I really like Mansour Delane. They're both great secondary players. And I think LSU's pass defense, they're top 5 in the SEC. It's been really good all year. It's been their run defense that has been getting just torched the last couple weeks. Against Vanderbilt and against Texas A&M, they were not gap sound. They were getting creased all day long. Their linebackers had a heavy lack of eye discipline. And they were getting cooked in the run game. They gave up a lot of rushing yards to Vanderbilt and to A&M. And you're thinking to yourself, okay, now Alabama's coming in there. Now Alabama's going to run the ball. It's the University of Alabama. If A&M and Vanderbilt tear you up, Alabama is going to run the ball down your throat. They're going to be punishing. They're going to line up in I formation, and they're going to dominate. That is not what happens. 0% chance that was because this isn't Alabama. This is 2025 Alabama. And 2025 Alabama cannot run the ball at all. 0%. None. 0 zip. Nada. Daniel Hill, 7 carries for 21 yards. 3.0 average. Long of 6. Jam Miller, 8 carries for 13 yards. Averaged 1.6 yards per carry. Kevin Riley had 1 carry. They can't run the ball. Alabama cannot run the ball, even against one of the worst run defenses in the SEC. So, to me, that continues to remain to be a huge issue for this Alabama offense that will come back to bite them at some point this year. To me, they were very big play reliant this game. I don't really understand. Both of their touchdown drives came off of a post route to Latsier Brooks. It wasn't a touchdown, but it got him in the red zone. And then a big play to Josh Cuevas on a dime throw by Ty Simpson. Ty Simpson was dialed this game, made a couple really big throws. The post route to Latsier Brooks was such a good throw. And then the wheel route to Josh Cuevas, too, just perfectly thrown. But Ty Simpson is very far from perfect. He makes a lot of throws like that, and people are like, oh my gosh, he's so good, NFL first-round pick. He's awesome. And then he turns around and he misses a wide-open Jeremy Bernard touchdown. So Ty is nowhere near perfect. He's got a lot to work on still. I think that the main reason Alabama was very big play reliant in this game and didn't have their long drives where they stacked plays is because LSU ran a lot of man coverage and a lot of bracket coverage. And so basically that took away Alabama's ability to have success in screen passes and short RPOs and made them go down the field more. Whereas the defense like Tennessee or defense like Georgia in the first half ran a lot of drop back cover 3 zone coverage and made Alabama pick them apart. So that's just what Alabama did. So this is more of just a strategy from LSU than it was a lack of a strategy from Alabama. I like what LSU's defense did. Honestly, LSU's offense kind of sold them this game. They had the fumble early in the game in the first quarter that set up Alabama to take a field goal to take the lead. They had a lot of drops, man. Trey'Dez Green had a wide open catch on 3rd down and 10 and dropped it. That was really, really brutal. It was a killer for LSU. They had 10 penalties, and what the heck does that say? Oh, yeah, they subbed Nuss out. Nussmeier was 18 for 21 in this game, just led a field goal drive, and they subbed him out for Michael Van Buren. I mean, I don't know. I guess he was more fun to watch, but I think Nuss is a much better quarterback. That's just me. But good win for Alabama. Again, I look at this Alabama offense, and I tell myself I just don't think that they're going to win a national championship game. Alabama plays Oklahoma next week. Then they got Eastern Illinois. Then they got at Auburn. They're going to play Oklahoma and at Auburn. Those are 2 good defenses. We'll see what they can do. I do think Alabama loses to Auburn on the road, which is crazy, but I believe that it'll happen just because I don't know. I have a feeling. I'll talk more about that game as we get. I'll break it down and I'll have an actual reason. But for now, I do think Alabama's going to lose to Auburn, which means they have to beat Oklahoma next week. So that there's big games for the Crimson Tide. They are not just in the playoffs right now. They have to win at least one of the next 2 SEC games, and they will be. As far as LSU, they're 5-4. They do play like one real cupcake team this year, so they will get a bowl game. And great fight from the Tigers. I was proud of what I saw from LSU. Just not good enough to take down the Crimson Tide in their own building. Just a couple things I had to mention in the SEC. Vandy won an awesome game against Auburn, 45-38 in overtime. Over 1,000 combined yards of total offense. Trey Richardson was awesome in this game for Vandy. Diego Pavia had just an unreal statistical game. I can pull it up real quick and read them out. Eli Stowers had 12 catches for like 120-something yards. He was awesome in that game. Come on, Vandy. Here they are. Let's see. Diego Pavia in this game was 25 of 33, 377 yards passing, 3 touchdowns, and he had 112 yards rushing plus a rushing touchdown. So 4 total touchdowns, and he himself had pretty much on the dot 500 yards of total offense. So big time for Diego Pavia against an Auburn defense that's been really good this year. And then all of a sudden, I watched this Auburn team last week in person against Kentucky when they put up 3 points at home against the worst team in the SEC. At least at the time, they did smoke Florida. But this Auburn offense just, like, dead in the water is understating it. They were awful. They were so awful. You can ask any Auburn fan. It was terrible. And then they come out and put over 500 yards of total offense on Vandy? I'm not saying Vandy's got an elite defense by any stretch of the imagination, but come on. Ashton Daniels actually looked good in this game. And Cam Coleman is just a freak. Cam Coleman is so good. He made so many, like 2 or 3 catches against Vandy where it's just him with his left hand and his right hand tied behind his back, and he's making plays. He's awesome. I don't know if Auburn's going to get him to stay the next couple years. If they do, great for Auburn. If Cam Coleman decides to transfer somewhere, whoever lands Cam Coleman is going to get an absolute stud. He is a great football player. But huge win for Vandy. They stay alive in the college football playoff race. They are now 8-2. And who do they have on the rest of their schedule? I know they have Kentucky at home. They have a bye week, then they have Kentucky, and then at Tennessee. So I think Vandy's got to win out to make the playoffs. We'll see if they can do that. It's very possible. Vandy in the playoffs would just go so crazy. I really hope it happens. But we'll see. Nothing is a done deal. So that leads me to the final topic of conversation that I want to have in this instant reaction video of Week 11 of the college football playoff season, or college football season rather. And that is to talk about the ACC, the Atlantic Coast Conference, and the chaos and everything that is nuts that is going on right now over on the Atlantic Coast. So for those that are unfamiliar, this week in college football, Wake Forest took down Virginia. Virginia was number 1 in the conference going into this week. If the playoffs had ended a couple days ago, Virginia would have been in. And Wake Forest turns around and beats the Cavaliers. Not only that, but Cal beat Louisville in overtime. Louisville is who I thought was going to win the ACC. Then they lose in overtime to Cal. Miami gets a huge bounce-back win against Syracuse. Not a great team in Syracuse, but they did get the win. SMU stays white hot with the big win over Boston College. Boston College is terrible. They're such a bad team. They're like 1-9 right now. But SMU beat them. And Duke, by the way, just lost to UConn. No, that is not basketball. Duke did not lose to UConn in basketball. John Shireman did not lose to Dan Hurley. Duke lost to UConn in football. I guess shout out to UConn for they're 7-4. No one is talking about UConn. UConn is balling right now. But how did Duke lose to UConn? It's UConn. That'd be an awesome basketball game, though, by the way. Little Cam Boozer versus Alex Caravan action. That'd be awesome. And then all of this is happening in the ACC. We're talking about all these amazing games. We're talking about UVA dropping to Wake Forest. We're talking about Louisville in overtime against Cal, and Duke losing to UConn, and Miami and SMU winning big games. And just low-key, casually, Clemson beats Florida State. Like, no one is talking about the Clemson-Florida State game in the ACC. It is completely irrelevant. Both those teams are 4-5, and everyone is talking about all the other games. I just think it's an awesome dynamic. So because of all this, because of all these wins and losses from this week, because of these upsets and whatnot, we have 5 one-loss teams in the ACC right now. We have Georgia Tech, whose one loss is to 2-3 NC State in conference. So Georgia Tech, even though they lost that really bad game last week, they had a bye this week, they're still first in the conference. Then it's Virginia, who's 8-2 overall, but 5-1 in conference. Then we have SMU, who lost twice in the non-conference to Baylor and TCU, and is sitting at third in the ACC, or tied for first in the ACC with just one loss. Then we have Pitt, who has completely flown under the radar, who lost a terrible game to West Virginia at the beginning of the year, and yet is 5-1 in the conference with a chance to make the playoffs. And then, just believe this or not, ladies and gentlemen, the Duke Blue Devils are 5-4. They have lost every single one of their non-conference games, and yet they find themselves 4-1 in the ACC with a realistic chance to make the playoffs. It is unprecedented how chaotic the ACC is right now. And that is not even mentioning the two-loss teams in this conference, who are Louisville and Miami, who might be the 2 best teams in this conference. So we live in a world where the ACC champion, who will most likely 100% be going to the playoffs, could range anywhere. It's more likely to be a 5-4 Duke team than Miami. It is so up in the air. There's no clear favorite. Anything can happen. And I think it's so unbelievably exciting. I cannot wait for the rest of this season of the ACC. Next week in the ACC, Louisville has to beat Clemson. Clemson's still a good team. They could lose that game. Virginia plays at Duke. That is a huge game. The loser of that game is likely eliminated from playoff contention. The winner stays alive. If you can just get to the ACC championship game, you can make the playoffs. Louisville plays at SMU in week 13. That's another huge game. Pittsburgh is at Georgia Tech in week 13. Those are the 2 one-loss teams. Miami plays at Virginia Tech. Could Virginia Tech play spoiler? We saw what happened last year. They almost pulled it off. Duke is at North Carolina. Not week 12, but week 13. So we live in a world. If, let's just say Duke beats Virginia. Duke beats Virginia. They're 5-1 in conference. They are at the top of the ACC pretty much. And we have a scenario where a 6-4 Duke team that has lost to Tulane and UConn could be eliminated from playoff contention because they'll lose to Bill Belichick and the North Carolina. We're living in a dream. This is a fantasy world. It's a nightmare that is going on in the ACC. Nothing makes sense. Nothing is as it should be. And it is just completely wide open. Anything could happen. And it is, to me, the most exciting conference in college football right now because literally no one knows what's going to happen. So that's what I got for the ACC. It's just chaotic. It doesn't make any sense. And whoever ends up winning that conference is, I don't know. I could not tell you who it's going to be. There are like 7 teams that it very well could be. And I'm really, really excited to see what happens in that conference. The only other conference I just want to mention real quick, Tulane upset Memphis on Friday night. The American Conference, that group of 5 spot, pretty wide open too. South Florida seems to be the favorite right now, but we'll see. North Texas is 8-1. No one's talking about North Texas. North Texas could very easily make the playoffs, and they got a great offense. Navy, it's probably not possible, but it's still like mathematically possible for Navy to make the playoffs. So I'm still riding that train with my troops. I love Navy, but you never know. But that's what I have for Week 11 of the college football season. Thank you so much for watching. If you've gotten all the way to this point, you're a legend. And if you get anything away from this podcast, it is that Jesus loves you, God loves you, and of course Jesus and God are the same. I don't mean to be confused about that, but Jesus is God, and he died on the cross for you, and even though things might not be going well right now in your life, it's all part of God's plan. All that we have to do is put our hope and our faith into God's plan and try and do our best to love God by loving each other. And if we do that, that's where we'll find true happiness. And I just want to say, God bless. Go make somebody smile this week, this weekend, whatever it is. Just bring God's joy to the other people in your lives, because we all need it. And none of us are alone in the fight with God. We're all together. We all have the same fight. So it's okay to talk to people about it if you're struggling in your faith, or if you're confused, or whatever it may be. Because we are all fighting the same fight. And the people that are in our lives for a reason. It's not like just we randomly stumble upon these people that we love so much, whether it's a spouse or a partner or a best friend or a roommate, whatever it is. People are in our lives for a reason, and God put them there so we can use them or not use them, but we can utilize their purpose in our lives to improve and get back on the right track if we're not on the right track. So just with that, I wanted to say thanks for watching. God bless, and have a great Sunday. Have a great week, and I will see y'all later. Thank you so much for watching.